Just trying to figure out why potential partners are ghosting your tech stack. This conversation will unlock practical strategies and real stories you won't hear anywhere else. Today, we have a guest that brings more than 2 decades of experience working with Sprint as well as other firms. She is an out of the box thinker and one of the first people to sell an IoT solution at Sprint. For the past 7 years, she has applied her knowledge and expertise working in Hyperion to accelerate partnerships. As Vice President of Channel Sales, welcome Yvonne Patterson, who is also a board member of ETMA.
Thank you so much, Joe, for having me.
So let's talk a little bit about Hyperion. What does your firm specialize in?
Thank you for asking. First of all, I will tell you that Hyperion, we simplify wireless business solutions with end-to-end services from disrupted hardware to logistics, field support, and even managed mobility. Our expertise eliminates the need for in-house infrastructure, saving businesses time and money and resources so that they can just focus on growth.
God, why do you think so many companies need help monetizing their relationships with carriers?
So mobility is complicated, right? It just should be easy. And I think navigating the carrier space to find the process to get to that activation, to then get to the monetization, has just proven to be a difficult task for most. We have decades of experience doing that for our partners. So that's why they need us.
So let's get into a little bit of that expertise. What are some of the different areas of Hyperion's expertise?
Absolutely. So think about anything that you can and do need to sell a business solution. That's where we come in. So if your firm doesn't already have this, then we can fill in the gap. So think device procurement, custom device development, solutioning, financing. Maybe it's buyback or trade in that your customer's needing, WEM support, deployment services. Maybe they need a NOC. Anything at all that you might want to wrap around that business solution, we can either help you source or find a partner to help you source.
Interesting. And what do you like? What's your philosophy as far as partnerships go and helping companies find those sourcing relationships, if you will?
So it's more than just a philosophy. It's about complementing what our partners already do so well. I'll give you an example. Let's say a distributor is a partner of ours, and we know that they already source hardware extremely well on their own. They're not going to come to us for that, but they may need a different device as a service deployment or a financing specialty, or maybe they're looking for WEM services. They come to us to help fill in the gaps of what they don't already do really well themselves.
Oh, that's a great point. So I hear often about gaps that people have in their product offering and the idea that they are seeking to close the door, if you will, on competitors getting in, selling areas where they have gaps. Can you give us some examples of some gaps that you've helped organizations fill?
I can give you a really good one. We customize how we partner with every single one of the companies that we work with. Like I mentioned, a distributor earlier. So a distributor's needs are going to be different. They're going to source hardware, they do cloud, they have their areas of expertise. So they're going to use us for a different product set than maybe a bar might need or a traditional service supplier. One of our MSPs that we work with, they do cloud and hardware and wireline extremely well, world class, best in the industry. But what they didn't have was the mobility space. And they realized that they were, one, leaving money on the table, but two, opening up the door to some other competitor who could do mobility coming in. And so instead of just saying, no, we don't do mobility, they look to Hyperion to bring in that resource for them. So in their case, they've outsourced their mobility to Hyperion. We are their mobility arm. So if a client has any element of mobility that they're needing, maybe it's just connecting a router or they want to order multiple Apple devices on a certain carrier or multiple carriers, they call us. We help them. And helping them means we can help them quote the service. If the client says yes, We'll secure that deal registration with the carrier that the client wishes. Then we help them with whatever they need from deployment services. Maybe it's kitting and staging. Maybe they would like a WEM solution. Maybe they need an MDM. Whatever it is that they've asked for, that's where we come in.
Wow, you must have some Rolodex of contacts.
We are very proud of our relationships.
And you mentioned a little bit about distributors, MSPs, and bars that you partner with. Is there like some commonality or certain partners that are your sweet spot, if you will, that seem to work better with you or that you target because you can find more business or maybe it's a better fit?
Yeah, I see where you're going. So most of the time, our partners know that they need to monetize the activations and they've come to us. That's the traditional way that we've been brought into our engagements and our partnerships. What I'm interested in at this point are those partnerships where they haven't thought about what they need to do to monetize activations or mobility at all. That's a really interesting conversation. It's easy for a VAR or a DISTI or an MTS partner. I'm sure we'll talk about that acronym, this conversation soon. But that's because they already are selling cellular. They're already trying to sell cellular. I'm interested in those conversations with new partners. They haven't thought about it yet, but it's adjacent to what they're already doing within their business. So maybe they're traditionally a wireline supplier and they've just thought, oh gosh, mobility is difficult. I would like to talk to them to see why they haven't considered mobility as an option in their portfolio to keep the competitor out and generate a new revenue stream.
Right. And why don't you get into that acronym that you just alluded to?
I will. MTS. So for many of you, you may not have heard of MTS, but I can tell you where it came from. MTS is the new acronym that I've coined for what we used to call a TEM. There's multiple reasons why this makes sense. I'll share with you a couple. So we already know that TEM vertical has gone through quite a change, an evolution. I like to call it a renaissance, if you will. Think back 2, 3 decades ago, a TEM was in the industry in the wireline or long distance space, and their singular goal was to go to a client and write down the business. So think if you're a carrier. How scary is that if you're a carrier that a TEM is coming into one of your clients? They're going to come in and write down my business. The evolution occurred because of mobility. So mobility came in first, the TEM could generate revenue in the same way, but then the carriers introduced unlimited plans. And when unlimited plans hit the marketplace, it really reduced the ability for our TEM friends to be able to write down the business in the way that they were accustomed to. Hence, they were losing revenue. And it also made it more difficult in this highly competitive environment where, you have one TEM today, you can have a second TEM the next day, or sometimes you've got multiple to see who could get them the most money back on their telecom expenses. So when we started working with the carriers and we started introducing the idea that a TEM might want to monetize activations, that terrified them. And I don't blame them. They were a little concerned about why a TEM would be in trying to write down carrier business or even in their client. But we've also been able to show them that the TEMs not only have evolved from just handling wireline services, long distance services, they've also changed who they are to their client. And in a lot of cases, and you know this very well, TEM has evolved into a solution provider, if you will. They've got business development arms that are out there trying to get new relationships and new clients all the time. They're focused on that enterprise global strategic client, very client that the carriers all want, of course, and they've become highly influential with these clients. They now write sometimes they make the decision on that RFP and they're helping that client decide where that carrier spend should go. That's of interest to the carriers. They really do need each other. They need each other to be successful. That TEM needed to generate a new revenue stream by monetizing activation. And the carriers really need Tim to introduce them to all of these clients that they would like to get into. So we feel like there's a marriage there that we need to bridge. But the brand of a TEM and just naming the TEM vertical, it it needed to change. So we came up with the new acronym of MTS, Managed Telecom Solutions. I think that more accurately describes who and what this vertical really is. I often say that TEM is not who they are. It's just something that they do now. It's just innate into what they're doing in their business. They're so much more than that. They're so much more strategic, and the carriers need to embrace that. So that's the reason for the change of the acronym.
That makes a lot of sense. And certainly we changed our name as an organization
Absolutely.
for the same reason, because these companies didn't want to be associated solely with a narrow area because they're into so many other areas. So going back to the whole channel strategy piece of it and what we promised at the top of the podcast, what are some of the most underrated moves that a company could make to really ignite their channel strategy? And what, if you would say, is what do most of them get completely wrong when they're trying to build a channel strategy?
That's a great question. So, for those partners trying to build out channel for the first time, I think it's not embracing it from the top down, meaning so many channel programs get started grassroots in the mid and lower levels of an organization. It has to be C-level driven. It has to be mandated from the top because decisions are made at that level. Revenue is decided, resources are decided. And I think it's imperative on these companies that want to embrace a channel to make sure that the leaders in that company are also embracive of the channel strategy.
That makes a lot of sense. So when you say what they get wrong, they just don't get the top stakeholders then involved as well.
And of course, it'll be really good for a little while, but the first time there's a hiccup, it just doesn't go well. It'll crash and burn if you just don't have the leadership involved.
That makes sense. What are some of the most innovative and exciting projects that you've been involved in recently?
Oh, we're working on a doozy right now. So I just learned about this. And as a matter of fact, we put out a press release. I think it's out on LinkedIn now. We're working with tour bus companies, and the tour bus company came to us with a challenge. So think about a big time country star that might be touring the country this year, and they need to make sure that they have connectivity. Maybe they need to call home, or their staff needs to manage the business of day to day tour life. They need Wi Fi in these buses, and it has to work whether they're in the Ozarks of Missouri or they're near the Canadian border or in Rocky Mountains. It can't matter. So we worked with this tour bus company to put together a solution. We helped them source a router. Actually, it's a couple of routers that they've bridged together. It has 4 SIM slots because of the bridging, allowing them to have 2 US carriers, a Canadian carrier, and satellite technology, giving them the best possible scenario and coverage for their Wi Fi. But even beyond that, it needed to be secure. So we added a security solution on top of that and a knock for troubleshooting. So if anything happened, they had a resource to be able to help them and support them. And this is being rolled out with tour bus companies across the nation. Pretty fun.
That's really exciting for sure. What do you think are going to be some of the most transformational or disruptive changes in the next 12 months and a little bit beyond in terms of tech affecting the marketplace that companies are going to need to adapt to?
That's a great question. We're hearing a lot about private 5G. We're hearing a lot about AI, satellite. Many companies are trying to figure out how do they implement pieces, parts, or maybe all of this into their ecosystem in a seamless way. We're already thinking about that too. And in a lot of cases, we already have some ideas about how the different verticals could use them. My ask would be if, as a company, you are faced with a client that's asking for those kinds of services, just don't say no, you don't have it. Give us a call. We may already be down that path or thinking about how we can deploy it for you. So just that would be my only thing. That's really an interesting thing.
It's all about thinking outside the box and not saying no to opportunities for sure. So, what are your business goals for the next 12 months?
It really hasn't changed. I think our focus is going to be helping our partners generate new revenue streams. And we're looking at that every day. It's helping those companies who are not looking at business development, who don't currently have a strategy for mobility. That's our goal, just to help them.
So, it's all about mobility in your world, then, it sounds.
It absolutely is. When something really well, you should stick to it. I think that we're the experts in mobility.
So, if channel partner were a dating profile, what would you say would be the biggest red flag? And what would make it maybe swipe right worthy?
I think channel partners, I think to build a good channel program, what I'm looking for in a partner is someone who understands that it is a partnership. It's a two-way street, that it's give and take. We've got to come to common ground. And I'm looking for partners who are willing to jump in with me and figure out what we do next to be successful. I think that's what makes somebody swipe worthy for sure.
And is there anything memorable that you could tell us about your firm that maybe will stick in people's mind after this podcast?
I often tell my partners, we're the good guys in telecom. We like to do business with other people. It's not about just companies, it's people doing business with people. I'd say anyone who thinks mobility is complicated, they need to call us. We'll make it easy.
Let's get personal a little bit and get to know Yvonne as a person. Where'd you grow up?
Oh gosh, my dad was a Vietnam era Marine veteran. So we moved a lot. I was born in Pomona, California. We moved to Hawaii. He was in the Marine Corps Finance Center eventually. So we moved to Kansas City. So I did grow up here in Kansas City for most of my life.
And I guess that's how you ended up at Sprint then, growing up in Kansas City.
It is exactly.
As a kid, were there activities that you did or traits that you had that are similar to what you're doing today?
That's a terrific question. So I will tell you two things that I did as a kid that I think were the building blocks of where I am today. I was a high school cheerleader. We made it all the way to nationals. It was fantastic. And I love those girls. I also was in speech and debate. I did competition acting. So I think the combination of the two really allowed me to build upon my speaking, poise, grace, being in front of a crowd. I loved all of that. As I pointed out to someone the other day, two diverse friend groups for sure, but it didn't matter. I just loved the people. And I still do. I'm very thankful that I participated in both of those activities and completely loved high school.
You got to be a people person if you're going to be in the channel for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How did you end up in your current position?
Oh, we've already mentioned I was at Sprint for 24 years. And when I was getting ready to make the change and leave Sprint, I made a call to a colleague and he told me, he said, you need to call Carrie McGonigal. He said, Hyperion. I already knew Hyperion at Sprint. My teams had been working with Hyperion. I knew Carrie, but I called him and said, hey, I'm looking to make a change. And a couple weeks later, here I was. I'm employee number 19. So that was 7 years ago. I started, our whole company really was a direct company. We sold back into Sprint at the time. That was our only carrier. We were exclusive back then. And it was the very sales teams that we used to lead. So it was really interesting. About a year and a half in during COVID, this opportunity came up in channel. I went to channel and I said, I should have been in channel my whole life. What a different world. It was like learning telecom from the ground up again, but I absolutely love it. The relationships that you can make, the partnerships that you form, unbelievable, unparalleled. It is so much fun every single day because every day is different. But I started working with a telecom expense management company. And what had happened is he called me and he said, I'm trying to monetize activations. But the carrier that he was trying to work with had a process that was preventing that from occurring. It was very singular transactions that they were having to deal register before they order. It wasn't working for them. So that's when I started with my very first TIM then. and moved that process along and worked collectively with the carrier to fix that problem for them. And I realized if I could fix that for him, I could fix it for others that were struggling in the same way to just monetize those activation. And then it just blossomed from there. It turns out every single one of the Tims were having the same issue. So we just started by knocking down the walls, solving business problems. And all of a sudden, we had an organization full of our telecom expense management friends. And that's how I got where I am today. Now we've got a team of almost 5 people that focus on our partnerships and specialty partners.
And of course, now we're calling them MTSs, right?
Now we are calling them MTSs, some of them kicking and screaming, but we'll get them there if they understand why.
For sure. That must have been a really interesting time, a year and a half into COVID to jump into the channel. Wow. That's a big change. Were there some special challenges with COVID going on where meeting face to face and conferences weren't happening?
We're fortunate that it really didn't impact us in a negative way. I think most of the people watching will agree. It was a very lucrative time because of all of the tablets and hotspots and different devices that were in high demand because of COVID and what a shock that was to our world. But being in channel, it really helped us. It gave us the time that we needed to build the channel properly, to really embrace who a partner should be to us and then build the infrastructure to support them. So I feel a little fortunate in a lot of respects because we did get to build the channel out correctly during that time.
Gotcha. What are some of your passions outside of work? We segued right back into work when we got to the personal piece, but
It's easy to do.
that's a good thing. But let's talk about some of your personal passions.
That's because work is a passion, which a lot of people are like, really? It is. But I also will share that I am a huge sports fan, Kansas City Royals, big Kansas City Chiefs fan. We go to a lot of games. I also love soccer. If there is a game on the weekend, it is hard to pull me away. I just think it's such a beautiful game. Both of my daughters played all the way through college, so I loved it. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't say my family. So I have been married to my best friend for 31 years. He's amazing. We just celebrated 2 days ago. We have 2 daughters, and with their husbands, I now have 3 grandchildren, which is crazy. I have twin granddaughters and a grandson who's just 1. So it's completely different now to be a grandparent. It's a lot of fun.
Well, that's fantastic. Congratulations. And congratulations on a big anniversary as well. What are some of the key skills or knowledge that you think are most important for success?
So we're going to get philosophical. I always say it's back to basics, quite honestly. I am rereading 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I'm old school that way. But I think some of the skills are, it's easy. Be kind, be honest, treat people like you want to be treated. And I think the rest of it falls in place. I want someone who calls me or wants to work with me to know that I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. I'm going to follow up. And most importantly, I'm going to answer my phone when they call. So again, back to basics.
I love it. If you were able to go back in time and talk to your younger self, or any additional piece of advice or things that you would tell your younger self?
Don't be afraid to take. I think my whole career has been built on figuring out a way. That can mean a lot of different things to a lot of people, but it's a lot of times you're given the boundaries that you're supposed to stay in. I say, keep pushing those boundaries, keep seeing where the wiggle room is, keep asking for the next thing, and keep pushing yourself to be better than you even think you're capable of.
Well, that's some great advice. So, as we just wrap up, how can people find out more about your firm and yourself?
That's easy. So you can go out to Hyperion Partners, hyperionpartners.net. You can also email me at ymp@hyperionpartners.net. We'd be glad to talk.
Awesome. I think that was just great. I think there was a lot of really good information on this podcast, and that brings us to the end of another episode. And I hope I will see you on the very next one. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
ETMA Tech Talk podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes research, collective wisdom, and action. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions from the market's top problem solvers, making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Thanks for listening, and see you on the next episode.